trying to put me in a box, saying this is it, you'll never be enough. Take those dreams and put them on a shelf. And for many years I was holding back, thinking I should be more like this and that. But then I saw the real truth of it all. No, I am not who you think I am. I am so much more. I am one with source. I am limitless, infinite, powerful, abundant, complete from the start. Creator of all. I am that I am. Oh yes, I am that I am. And I've been stuck in thoughts, doing it their way. Didn't listen to the things my heart would say, letting fear take over and decide. But when I realized that the choice was mine, oh, I could feel a shift and I began to shine, living an empowered, beautiful life. No, I am not who you think I am. I am so much more. I am one with source. I am limitless, infinite, powerful, abundant, complete from the start. Creator of all. I am that I am. Oh, I am that I am. And therefore everything around could fall apart, and I would still have love in my heart. Open eyes, now I see that there is nothing to do, just be. No, I am not who you think I am. I am so much more. I am one with source. I am limitless, infinite, powerful, abundant, complete from the start. Creator of all.
Right. So again, the reason that we play that, and I go through this every Monday, is because I think it's a really, really great way to start off your week, your day, is to start thinking about the things of possibilities, and that you're limitless and that you're fearless. And I think I am statements are really powerful ways to do that, and this song really encapsulates it. So if you have a hard time making up I am statements, sometimes just singing the lyrics to the song sort of helps you jump off into another thing, but it also gets your mind in the right place so that you can go on and you can do some really cool things. So today's talk is going to be a little bit different, and please think of this as a metaphor. Please think of this as a number of different metaphors all rolled up into one. Everybody's going to take their own interpretation from this story, and I think that's what it's meant to. What it's meant to do. For me, the story means something fairly specific, and then I'll talk about that sort of as we go through, and I'll make some points. So today's story is the story is called Mom, and so Mom was born in the 30s in a small town. And then she moved to an even smaller town where her family worked in a lumber mill. And I think at around 12, she went to live with the people who owned the lumber mill to take care of their house and their kids and cook and clean and all of that stuff. And so there was an establishment of service early on. And then as she grew and stuff, she started to work at a doctor's office in a very, very small town in Northern Ontario. And she was a light, right? She had a light. People loved her. Everybody loved her because they would walk in, talk about their most intimate moments, talk about their most intimate things, and she was always able to guide them through. And she would give suckers to kids and encourage them to come back. And then of course, life happened. She had 6 kids. Started at 16 years old, had 6 kids. And the youngest was the difference was 7 years after the previous one. So sort of like an unintended consequence of a pretty radical night, I'm sure. And so the the five kids were raised a particular way. The one kid had a completely sort of different life, almost an only child. And so this kid, let's call him Calvin, just for argument's sake. I just know this story fairly intimately. And as they grew up, one day mom came home and said, I wanted to buy this pattern and buy some material so I can sew this thing. And we didn't, the community that they lived in didn't have a place to do that. So she decided one day she was going to open a fabric shop in the basement of her house. And so next thing you know, the house had all of this fabric and all of these things and buttons and pins and needles and fabric and stuff. And what did she know about retail? Not a thing. Like literally not a thing. She didn't know anything really. What did she know about material? Not really anything, right? She wasn't a seamstress. She wasn't anything. She just one day she wanted to buy a pattern and didn't have it, and thought that the town needed service. And so she would provide that service. And so that was one of those things. And then as her kids moved away from the home and all of that stuff, one of them, Calvin, came back to the town and bought a bar and opened a bar, and that was actually his third business that he had. And the first business was a clothing store. The second business was a restaurant. And in that little restaurant, that little wing place, she would make butter tarts. And so she would sell these butter. I don't know, it was Calvin. I don't know who this guy is, but anyway, Calvin would sell these butter tarts at this restaurant and stuff. And so she was always very involved. Again, right, service, right? There was this underlying thing about service. And then when Calvin had this bar, every single dessert that was served in that bar was handmade from her. And so she would work the day at the doctor's office and go home and bake pies and cakes and pastries and all kinds of things so that those things could be sold in the restaurant portion of the bar. And so literally every single thing that was done for that. Her light was shining, right? Her light continued to shine. And so then Calvin decides, well, we have to make a big splash because it's New Year's and it's New Year's coming. So Calvin decided he was going to have this New Year's bash, and we were going to invite Honeymoon Suite to come and play, which was something that was extraordinary for a small town of about 1,600 people in Northern Ontario that hadn't had any type of entertainment of that sort. And so suddenly it went from we're going to have a concert to, well, we have to have a meal. And so because the restaurant was busy that time of the year and stuff, Calvin's staff certainly didn't have an opportunity to cook extra stuff. So mom took it upon herself to make sure that she cooked every morsel of food that was consumed in that evening, which was cool, right? Which was cool, right? Her light was shining. And, she was a celebrity for it because she had purpose, because she had a reason for being. And then, of course, she gets to the point where she retires. She moves away from that small town, and she interacted with a man, friends, I think, don't know, didn't ask, none of my business. But she took him into her home, and they split costs and stuff, and she cared for him, and so she had a purpose. And then when he passed, she no longer had that purpose, and so she was a little lost and stuff. And so Calvin was just in the process of getting remarried to, I don't know, let's call her Juliet. And so we discussed it. They discussed it, and they thought, hey, I know it's a good idea. Why don't we have mom move in with us? Which was something that was kind of we're of that generation, or they were of that generation, that sandwich generation, where you have to care for your kids, care for your parents, and all of that stuff, have some level of responsibility and stuff. And so that's what happened. And it was great because there was youngish kids at home, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And so again, right, she could be of service. She could help care for them, help, whatever. But then as time went on, those kids grew up and she no longer had a purpose. And so they discussed with her how, perhaps it was not a bad idea for her to go to a senior center and to meet people and to surround herself with people. But she considered all those people old. And at the time, she was in her late 70s probably. But it was old, right? So these people are old. They're not my people. I don't know. I don't know. I don't consider myself old. It's okay. So one day, there was this Calvin was awoken to this major argument. And so Juliet decided that she had had enough of Mom, and it was time for her to go. Because if I'm being honest, as I've been told the story, she really was difficult, right? Because she was unhappy, because she didn't have her light, right? Her light was dimming in that day, at that time, because she had lost her purpose. And so, she decided to go with, our help, get out. That was our help. And it really felt awful at the time, right? The way I'm told this story, it was really felt awful. Everybody involved felt awful. And so it was acrimonious, and the place that she went to, she was only there for a short time because the person she was living with was getting evicted. And so then Calvin's sister, let's call her Jane, for lack of a better terminology, she was going to have to take her in. And of course, Jane didn't want her to live because, she was difficult. Let's just be honest, right? And so then, there's lots of ingenuity that kicked in, and a lot of stuff. And she found Mom a place, a little apartment that, didn't have cupboards, it didn't have anything. But she went in and they made it feel like home. And they got her a little toaster oven, and they got her a hot plate. And so she lived there. And, Calvin became estranged to her and hadn't really spoken with her in a long time. Because there was a lot of judgment, right? A lot of discomfort with the whole idea of good or bad, right or wrong. Was this the right thing? Was this fairness? And so, life goes on, and so everybody grows, and of course, I was curious, right? Curious, so I would inquire, and oh, she's good, she's happy, she complains a lot, but she's good, she's happy, she's good, she's happy, great. And so, Calvin went on his own kind of journey and decided at some point that it was time to reach out. It was time to talk. And so over the holidays, Calvin decided to pick up the phone and call. Very uncomfortable, but Calvin decided to call. And when he talked to her, he saw her light return, because he said, "How are you?" And she said, "I am excellent. I have a job." And her job was, she baked for her friends. And I have friends, and they're wonderful, and I belong, and I had a sense of community. And I see her light return. And that was incredible, that her light had returned. And so as I started to reflect, okay, so I'm Calvin. in case anybody didn't know. So as I started to reflect on this, because reflection was one of the things that we were working on in another part of my life, another thing that I do. As I started to reflect on this, I started to remember this story. Prior to that conversation, all I could think about was good or bad, right or wrong. How awful was I? How awful were we? And once I got past judgment, then I started to see things. I started to understand things. I started to see my own story in what was happening. You know, I always thought, where the hell do you get the idea that one day you're driving a taxi and then you go in a back room and you see a bunch of restaurant equipment, then you open up a restaurant? Where does that come from? Where does that entrepreneurial spirit come from? It's like, wow, I just got that from nowhere. That's not true. It came from her. Right? We need a fabric shop. I'm going to have a fabric shop. No second guessing, no question, no doubt, no fearless, just utter fearlessness, no fear whatsoever. Just do it. What the hell? We'll just do it. When it was time to open my bar, we'll just do it. What the hell? When my son came to me and said, we should have a supper club in our garage, we'll just do it. I mean, why? It didn't seem like it was weird to me because I had grown up with a fabric shop in the basement. All because of somebody's spirit, all because of somebody's light. So, and then I look at the greater story, and I think, wow, the hero in this story is Juliet. It's because had she not had enough and had the courage to move her along, she would never have got to where she wanted to get to. And so after I got off the phone, I called, my sister, Joan. So it's Joan and Jay. Jane is Joan, in case you're wondering. So I called Joan and I started to have a conversation about this. And, she was talking to Mom. And she said, listen, you're 87, right? Like, so what do you want to do when the time comes? And she was always very religious, always wanted a church service, wanted to go back to where we were born, wanted to be buried in a particular place. And she said, I just want to be with my friends. I just want to be here. So when you think about the things that happen in your life, the shit that you go through, the seemingly bad decisions, difficult conversations that you have when you're having those difficult conversations, you don't know what they're going to be like. You don't know what this is going to look like down the road. Had Joe never kicked her out, had they never had that argument, she would never have found her friends where she wanted to be eternally. She would never have had those conversations and stuff. And so if you apply judgment to all of those things, you could take pieces of this story apart and say, my God, this guy was a monster. This person was a monster. But the truth is that everything that happened for the betterment of something else. Did we know that at the time? Absolutely not. How is it possible to know that at the time? You just didn't know, right? But when you get out of the way and you let life happen and, other people get involved and there's, pressure to get something done, then it doesn't seem like pressure. It seems like the natural next step. And so, for me, it's been an important story because I could never see past. Every time I thought of my mom, I thought only as far back as when we kicked her out, but I didn't see anything else. I couldn't see that I had an origin that was rooted in what she did, the lessons that she was teaching me that I didn't know she was teaching me. And it's because of judgment that I couldn't see those things. So I talk all the time about how important getting past judgment and getting to a post-judgment place is, and all of those things. But it was this story. It was this thing that happened to me that made me understand how really, truly important getting past judgment is. Because I was able to see things in my clarity. I was able to see things that I had forgotten. I was able to see what her story was and what her light was and the gifts that she gave me like I had never been able to see before. So these stories are personal, obviously, and there's a particular narrative about it. And I talked a lot about owning my narrative. And that's really what I'm doing here. I'm owning my narrative. And I'm speaking truth to actually what happened, but also I'm talking about the lessons that we get to learn along the way. And the lessons are that no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what decisions you have to make, no matter how difficult they seem at the time, you don't know what they're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And you don't know if what you're doing right now that seems really, really, really heinous is going to be, is going to be the thing that gives somebody back their life, their purpose, their light, right? So think about that as you go through. Thank you very much for indulging me. That was a personal story. And thank you very much for indulging my emotion. I appreciate you all. Have a truly, truly, truly wonderful day and an amazing 2024. I think 2024 will be a much better time than last year. So all the best, everybody.